morning, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Inside NASCAR. We'll get you set for race number 26 of the Winston Cup schedule. It's the MBNA 400 from Dover, Delaware. Hey, the Busch Series was also in Dover, and we'll show you the controversial finish. But first, here's a look at what else is ahead in this next 1 hour of Inside NASCAR.
Although winless to this point in the 1997 season, Bobby Labonte is 7th in the standings and has finished almost every race. In his opinion, that's a major victory. We'll hear from Bobby and get his impressions on the performance of the Interstate Batteries team. Kurt Roehrig is a multi-team owner on the Craftsman Truck Tour, and this year has had multi-drivers in his number 18 Dana Dodge. We'll profile this unique driver audition for the 98 season and find out what the pros and cons are for the Roehrig Motorsports team. The state of Virginia is producing some top racing talent these days with names like Burton and Sadler leading the charge. Coming up, we'll introduce you to Wayne and Kevin Grubb, another pair of brothers trying to break into NASCAR's big time. Those stories and more are just ahead on Inside NASCAR.
Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Miller Lite, who reminds you that anything can happen at Miller time. Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. ESOB Materials, the official supplier of welding and cutting products to Petty Enterprises. And by Kawasaki All-Terrain Vehicles. Call 800-661-RIDE for the dealer nearest you.
Well, last week it was the Magic Mile. This week, it's the Monster Mile. All kidding aside, you have to like Jeff Gordon's chances. Not only did he win last week in Loudon, but he came into this race having won the last 2 fall races at Dover. Plus, he's on the outside pole today. Let's check in with Phil Wirtz, who's at the track with all the news. Phil?
Thanks, Tyler, and good morning, everybody. You know, fall doesn't officially start until tomorrow, but it sure does feel like it today. A cold front came through the Delmarva Peninsula last night, and high temperatures for today's MBNA 400 only expected to be in the middle 60s. That could be a setup problem for some teams because during Saturday's happy hour, temperatures range to about 80 degrees. Right now, a couple of silly season items to pass along. Derek Cope didn't take long to find a ride for next season. Cope will go to the number 30 car for 98. The Pennzoil sponsorship will be Steve Parks, but Bahari Racing should have one for Cope soon. Morgan Shepherd is back together with Richard Jackson. He's happy to be back with the R&L Carrier Pontiac after a short and unproductive run in the Jasper Motorsports number 77 car. Shepherd will start 15th in today's MBNA 400. As for Jeff Burton, he's still not fully recovered from his inner ear problems. He did tell us he expects to start today's race, but Todd Bodine will be around to take over just in case. Bodine did practice in the Exide Ford this weekend in preparation for that substitute role. And Busch Series driver Buckshot Jones will drive some Sundays in 1998. He announced a limited Winter Cup slate for next season, and like his Busch ride, Aquafresh will be the primary sponsor for a 5 to 8 race schedule.
We've always said whenever we get competitive in a class, we try to move up to the next class because, you know, Winston Cup's where we want to be. And, you know, this year I think it's been a good year for us. We've been able to run up front a lot of the races. So that's why next year we're not trying to go full time. We just want to run up to 8 races.
As for Friday's qualifying, Bill Elliott in the McDonald's Ford set the early pace as the first driver to go below 24 seconds on the Monster Mile. Then it became a game of can you top this? 2 cars later, David Green grabbed the pole with a time of 23.971 seconds, but he would settle for the 11th spot. That's because next out was Rick Mast in the Remington Arms Ford. He completed a lap of 150.288 miles per hour, bumping Green from the top spot. But then 2 cars later, Jeff Gordon, winner of the last 2 MBNA 500s and 3 of the last 4 races at Dover Downs, bested Mast's mark by better than 0.2 of a second. His time of 23.718 seconds had the DuPont Chevy squarely on the pole. But 25 cars later, Mark Martin gave it a shot in the Valvoline Ford. And Martin responded with a time of 23.679 seconds, good enough for Martin's 3rd pole of the season, and will start beside Gordon on row 1. And joining us now, the driver of the Valvoline Ford, Mark Martin. Mark, you're on the pole today. As far as this race is concerned, 22 races, 4 second-place finishes, but not yet a win here at Dover. Is today the day?
This is one of the racetracks I've run the best of anywhere. We've never won here. You know, this place is one of the places that we should have won a long, long time ago. I don't know when we'll ever win here, but, you know, we sure feel good. We feel good about this one.
Obviously, Dover Downs, the Monster Mile, one of the toughest, most grueling places to run as a driver. 100 miles shorter this race is this MBNA 400. Does it make any difference? Do you change your strategy?
After we finish the first lap, it'll be 3:99 to go instead of 4:99 to go. You figure your strategy lap by lap. You know, you can't plan anything ahead of time. You have to look at what's in front of you and make decisions based on what's going on. So it doesn't really change anything. It can change the outcome of the race, but it doesn't change your strategy because you figure your strategy as you go anyway.
Mark Martin on the pole for this one. If he can win this race from the pole, $114,000 bonus. Sounds pretty good, Mark. Let's take a look now at the first 5 rows for today's MBNA 400. And on the pole, it will be Mark Martin. He finished second here back in June and starts today's race 139 points behind leader Jeff Gordon. And Gordon is alongside. Amazingly, Gordon has not started worse than third in the last 6 races at Dover Downs. On row 2, Dale Jarrett starts third, but get this, his average finish in his last 7 races at Dover, 29th. He can ill afford that outcome today. Dick Trickle, Saturday's pole sitter, starts 4th this afternoon. On row 3, Bobby Labonte in the Interstate Batteries Pontiac starts 5th. Alongside will be John Andretti in the RCA Ford. Row 4, Joe Nemechek starts 7th in the Bell South Chevy. He finished 15th here in June. Hutch Strickland goes off 8th in the Circuit City Ford. And on row 5, Rick Mast, who had his best finish of the season, 12th here in June. And rounding out the first 5 rows is Ricky Craven in the Budweiser Chevy.
I tell you what, Dover lived up to its White Lightning nickname in yesterday's Busch race. The MBNA 200 came down to 3 drivers, Buckshot Jones, Joe Bessie, and points leader Randy LaJoie. Who would be celebrating after the dramatic finish? Let's head to the highlights to find out. Dick Trickle's day on the pole lasted all of 1 turn because that's when Ricky Craven went around him for the lead. It was a sign of things to come for Trickle, who broke a camshaft less than a quarter of the way into the race, finishing 37th. Points leader Randy LaJoie was on the move early, running 5th by lap 69 after starting 16th. 1 lap later, the caution's out when Jeff Fuller gets sideways, starting a multi-car melee. But thanks to a great pit stop, LaJoie leaves pit road with the lead. He also led at the halfway mark. This wild ride by Hermie Sadler not only took out Hermie, but also a section of the crossover gate, causing the race to be red flagged while repairs were made. With 44 laps left, Buckshot Jones was up to 2nd behind LaJoie, and with 22 to go, he passed the Phoenix Chevrolet for the lead. It appeared Buckshot was on his way to his first victory of the season, but 9 laps later, the Aquafresh car gets sideways out of 2, with Joe Bessie and LaJoie right behind. Did Bessie nudge him? It's tough to tell from the replay. With Buckshot done, though, Bessie would go on for his first victory in the Busch Series, but on entering victory lane, he's blocked by some of Buckshot's crew members. It's only Bessie's 3rd career top 5 finish.
The win here at Dover is kind of funny. A lot of Busch. I ran my very first Busch race here at in 1987. Running the Busch North Series down here. I'm sorry, it was 1988. And just the track's been kind of special to me. We've never been able to get we've got a couple 10th place finishes. Today was our day.
Well, that's it for this segment of Inside NASCAR. Ned's coming right back with more of the show from Joe Gibbs Racing, home of Bobby Labonte shop. Stay tuned for the MBNA 400. It's right here on TNN, beginning at high noon. As we leave you, here's a look at the rest of the starting grid. Enjoy the race, everybody.
This is the office of Bobby Labonte. That's the seat he rides in to make his living in the Joe Gibbs Interstate Batteries Pontiacs. And that's where we are in Huntersville, North Carolina at Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, some people might say this team is not having a good year because they haven't won. They've won the last 2 years, but they're 7th in the NASCAR Winston Cup point standings. Tyler Potter talked to Bobby Labonte about the year they're having.
His brother may be the Iron Man, but younger brother Bobby is Mr. Consistency. Since the Miller 500 in Dover June 1st, Bobby has been 7th in the Winston Cup point standings, a stretch of 15 weeks. This despite the fact he hasn't won a race this year, with his worst finish coming ironically at Dover, where he fell out of the top 5 in points.
We've been more consistent this year. We haven't had a win, but we've been more consistent throughout the bulk of all the races. That's why we're in the top 10 in points right now instead of trying to get to the top 10 in points. So, yeah, look at that a little bit. I mean, that's an improvement, but and it's not like the body style changeover has hurt that. I mean, it looks like it's made it better, but still kept us out of victory lane, or has so far. So we still got to work on that. I mean, it's just, you know, we're kind of there at times, and then if you're in the top 10 but you're 6th through 10th, it's a little bit harder to get there, but still gaining on it, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're still gaining on it.
The body style. Pontiacs were just hit with their first rule change of '97. This coming on the heels that 3 Pontiac drivers will be switching rides at the end of the season. And while the future of those teams may be in flux, Labonte says his team is right where it needs to be.
We've got some stuff we're doing over the winter here. We're going to be doing over the winter to make it even better. So, I mean, that's all you can really ask for. And I mean, we rely on other people's input too. And you hate to lose good drivers, you know, but at the same time, we still got to keep our program like it is and try to keep learning what we're trying to learn also.
Labonte's winless streak stretches back to last November when he won the season-ending Napa 500 in Atlanta. Bobby may have won the race, but brother Terry won the championship. With the younger Labonte struggling to find victory lane, who better to turn to than the 2-time Winston Cup champion?
I've been hanging around him so long, I don't think that this 1 year he teaches me a lot more than he did last year, you know. And I think it's just racing. You know, I mean, we just, you know, we kind of have, yeah, a different style of racing, but yeah, the same type of style of racing in a way. And I mean, he's 8 years older than I am, so I've got to get to his point. I mean, to kind of catch him in a way, I'm 8 years younger, so that means I'm 8 years less experienced too. So I'm trying to get to that point. So, but I think it's getting closer. It looks like that, you know, the way we drive and how we drive gets closer as I go through the years.
A new wrinkle to the fold this year, Tony Stewart, who comes to Joe Gibbs Racing from the Indy Racing League. To date, Stewart's run 2 Busch races. Next year, he'll run a full schedule. The results haven't exactly been eye-popping because he's crashed in both races. Labonte's advice to his new teammate, patience, because with patience comes consistency.
It's just an adjustment from what he's been used to racing. And he raced some last year, but very sporadically, you know, just a few handful of races. So, you know, it's just a different type of racing and different type of race cars. And I mean, you just got to get accustomed to it. And, you know, you might run good this weekend, but next weekend is still tough, you know, and you got to be consistent at it, and you got to get the good feel for it and understand how other competitors are. It's just going to take a while, you know, and I mean, but ain't no doubt about it. I know he can go fast, and it's just a matter of the racing part that's going to be, you know, tough to learn.
The Interstate Batteries bunch has come a long way in Bobby's 3 short years as driver to the brink of contending for a title. Yet the number of wins has dropped each year from 3 to 1 to none.
It's so tough. You better take what you can get. And I mean, everybody works hard to try to get that extra to win that race or to win several races a year. And, you know, you're right there on the edge, but you can't seem to find that next step. And until you do, I mean, you just keep working at it. And, you know, we won 4 races in 2 years. You know, that's not bad average, but we still want to do better. And I think that 42 other guys do. They want to win 4 races a year also. Well, it's hard to do that, but, you know, we're close, but we still need to get a little bit better. I need to get a little bit better at things. I mean, just a little fine-tune things, really.
Hi, this is Jeff Hammond, Crew Chief at the Parts America Chevrolet. This week, let's talk about fire safety and what it means to the driver as well as the teams and how we have to go about protecting the driver. This little bottle right here is all that protects the driver. It's a bottle of halon. A lot of times it's located behind the driver. But what happens is, in case of a fire, the driver has an option of setting it off himself, or there is also a sensor in this head area which is temperature regulated, so in case the driver is knocked out, it will go off automatically and give him protection. What the driver does in case of a fire, got a safety pin here. He'll pull this pin, he'll push this lever down, and when he does that, it will activate the halon from inside the bottle, which flows out through a tube and is dispersed by this nozzle right here. In our situation, we prefer to put all the concentration of the halon on the driver in this compartment area to give him the maximum amount of time to get out of the car in case there is a fire. Some teams elect to put nozzles underneath the hood or in the trunk area where the fuel cell is located, also to try to protect the driver. But as far as NASCAR is concerned, this is the best thing going as far as fire protection today, and I'm sure that's the way we'll do it for years to come.
There's a unique situation going on in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Kirk Rorick, who owns Rorick Motorsports, fields 2 Dodge teams in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Tony Raines drives one of them, and Michael Dawkins started out driving the other one. But in recent races, Rorick has been trying out drivers to see who will drive the number 18 truck in the 1998 season. And Michael Dawkins is one of those who is trying out. Stephanie Boyd-Durner has that story.
When Rorick Motorsports started its 2-truck operation heading into the 1997 season, the expectations were high for both teams. The number 18 Dana Dodge, driven by Michael Dawkins, and the number 19 Pennzoil Dodge, driven by Tony Raines. Although Raines failed to qualify for a couple of races early on, his win at Odessa and 7 top 10 finishes have him pretty much on schedule. But midway through the season, the Dana team was still having trouble putting its whole package together. So the sponsor and owner Kurt Rorick decided to try something different, auditioning a handful of drivers the remainder of this year, trying to determine the best combination for 1998.
And looking at the driver situation, we decided that, there are so many talented drivers out there, and we decided we needed to take a look at a few more people. So we set up an evaluation process that basically centered around 5 drivers: Michael Dawkins, Jerry Marquis, Ted Christopher, Tom Hubert, and Kevin Zawinski, all from kind of different areas of stock car racing. And we give each of them a race or 2 and look at it and maybe not make even a decision this season. We still will probably not make our announcement of who the driver will be until after the season is over.
Of the 4 newcomers, 2 are from the Northeast. Ted Christopher and Jerry Marquis both have impressive resumes in Busch North Modified and Winston Racing Series competition. Midwesterner Kevin Zawinski is the current ASA Series points leader, and Tom Hubert is a former West Coast driver who now serves as Rorick's shop foreman and is the front tire changer for Johnny Benson. Hubert first started capturing headlines when he was called in to drive the number 78 Winston Cup car at Sears Point at the last minute, and then made an impressive showing, finishing 28th.
It definitely helped. It opened a lot of eyes, and the biggest thing now is just get a couple good runs in a truck, so to show people that I could do more than just what we've done so far.
And therein lies the challenge. Each of these guys only gets a couple of shots behind the wheel, and that means only a couple of shots to impress, regardless of circumstances.
Oh, you always have to prove something, there's no doubt about it. I'm sure they're looking at a performance situation here. Besides getting back to the crew with the certain information that they need to make the truck run real well and trying to make everything work in that fashion. So, I mean, there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of things that you've got to accomplish in that, and it's a lot of pressure.
The trick is how you handle the pressure, trying to stay focused on the racing and not get sidetracked by what's at stake.
Just do the best I can do and let them decide who they're going to pick in that. And, I've been fortunate enough to win some races in the divisions I've run and win some races in the Busch North. So if you're in a good vehicle and you drive it the best you can do, then hopefully you'll have a good finish with it and maybe win with it.
We could go and just run test sessions someplace, and that doesn't really tell you anything about desire. That doesn't tell you about how they react to a situation in a race. Someone comes up and through no fault of your own, they spin you. Well, how do you react to that? Do you get mad and compound the situation, or do you stay calm and, you know, keep digging to make the most that you can out of it? So we get to see the whole, you know, the whole range of emotion by running them in a race.
Since this experiment started 7 races ago, the only finish better than 20th has come from Christopher, who finished 7th at Watkins Glen. Hubert is the only guy who has been in the truck more than once, so there's lots more work to do before each guy gets his fair share.
I think this also shows the strength of our Dana team right now and the guys on it, because every one of the guys treats it as a professional. Their job is to prepare the best vehicle that they can, no matter who's driving it. Now, you know, they realize this is to try to give themselves the best possible capability to run for and win a championship in 1998, so that they understand they're working for next year. But I haven't seen one guy yet get disgruntled or, you know, get down about the whole thing. It's a lot of extra work. I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but changing a seat to match a driver's preferences, you know, every race ends up being a fair amount of work. That can be 6 hours in the shop to get a seat and pedals set up, you know, for a guy properly. So it's been a lot of additional work at a time where we've had a very tight schedule. But the guys have risen to the occasion and done a great job.
The team will have yet another seat to fit when Johnny Benson fills in the number 18 next week at Martinsville. Benson is the guy Rohrig says he'd like to clone a driver from, and actually he's already done it. Just like Benson, his other driver, Tony Raines, is also a former ASA champ. If that counts for anything, don't forget, Zawinski is the current ASA points leader. But Rohrig says that's not the criteria for deciding who's his guy.
It's many factors, and it's not just the ability to drive the vehicle fast. It's one's ability to handle traffic. It's one's ability to work with yourself. Being able to work with the press is very important. There are a number of factors in being a race car driver, but you know, in the end, it kind of comes down to the guy's heart. I mean, you got to have a guy that has the ability, but he's got to want it. You can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't have the desire, you're not going to make it, because there are 34 other guys out there that have ability, and desire is going to make the difference between a guy who runs up front and a guy who runs in the back. I mean, look at Hornaday. You know, the guy never quits. That's desire.
Whether that type of desire can be determined in a couple of races still has yet to be seen. In the meantime, though, it's an interesting experiment to watch and could give us a glimpse of the future for 98.
Well, thanks, Stephanie. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. We'll be back with a story on the Grubb brothers who are trying to make their way in the NASCAR Busch Series right after this.
It's hard to get along with sometimes, but then again, it's easy to get along with because you're family. But in all, it works out pretty decent. It has for us so far. So, yeah, I think this brother team's going to work out. I would say at least a good 5-7 pounds, especially if I run the whole race, which I try always to do. The problem is, though, I always seem to gain that 7 pounds back before we go to the next race. And that's my goal right now, is to lose about 7 to 10 pounds.
The cars, you know, they reach temperatures inside up to about 150 degrees, and, you know, it really depends on each individual, but you can lose anywhere from 5 pounds to, you know, in some cases I've seen 10 pounds, but that's a lot. There's no doubt about it. But during the race, you're forever tightening your belt. The seat keeps getting looser, so obviously we're losing a little bit of weight.
Well, I really don't know. I haven't weighed in. It's been years and years. Probably in the late 70s, early 80s, we weighed in before and after the race at Charlotte, the World 600. I think I lost 7 pounds before and after the race, and I was drinking fluids the entire time. I think Benny Parsons would be a good guy to talk to. I think in that race he lost 19 pounds.
Now, the state of Virginia seems to have a knack for producing sets of brothers who make it in NASCAR racing. The Burton brothers certainly have made it, and so have the Sadler brothers, and now the Grubb brothers, who have raced in both the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and the Busch Series, Wayne and Kevin. Tyler Potter has their story.
Would you guys both agree it takes patience to get to this level full time?
I say patience is the key to racing. If you don't have patience, I mean, you're going to end up wrecking the car every week. And you know, you can't win the race on the first lap. And also, just patience with progression like we're doing right now. If you try and just accomplish everything at one time, it's not going to happen. But you also have to have a certain level of drive. you don't have a certain level of drive, you end up missing the bus, and you'll miss that key ride that you want to get. And so, like I said, you have to have patience, and you have to be on your toes and ready to go at all times.
Wayne, I read where last year when you ran your 2 Craftsman Truck Series races, you said you learned a lot from those races. What did you learn, and how will that help you for the future?
Most of the things we learned was patience, and just watching different drivers on how they work traffic. We're learning with the radial tires and dealing with the more motor. All we really ran was the late model so far, and that's a lot less motor than a Busch or a Craftsman Truck Series. So, just being patient with the motors and just watching how they're working the traffic and how you can set people up with the radial tires, and that's about just mainly just being patient.
Wayne, you've run 5 Craftsman Truck Series races. Kevin, you've run 4. Both of you guys each have 3 Busch races under your belt. Does that taste of the big time just make you that much hungrier to go out there and do it full time once and for all?
It's a lot more competitive racing than what we're used to, and the more we run a part-time schedule, the more I'm ready to go full-time, because I'm getting more and more comfortable with them, and starting to get to know people around the garage area, and that's helping a lot. And what can I say? I'd like to go full-time next year. We're going to run a full-time schedule. We don't know quite when. We're talking about some deals as far as next year. Nothing's final yet, so it was just play it by ear, take it when we can get it, and just trying to get the right brakes. That's what racing's all about. That's a big key in racing. So, we're going to see what we can do.
You're both young pups. Wayne's 21, Kevin, you're 19. What are some of the other Winston Cup drivers, or Busch or truck drivers for that matter, come up and told you guys as kind of words of encouragement in this stage in your career?
We get a lot of encouragement. I tell you, Randy LaJoy, he helps us out a lot. He does the rookie meetings and stuff, and we talk a lot, and he'll help us out. I know in practice sometimes he'll pull out right in front of me, and I'll get to following him, and he'll just to get used to a track or whatever, and he'll show me a line or whatever, and he jokes around. He calls us Peach Fuzz Racing. He calls me Peach Kevin Fuzz. So we got a little humor going around in the pits. And Elliott Sadler, he's getting a full season under his belt, and he's getting a little comfortable with it, and he's sort of helping us out right now as far as talking to us, sort of helping us shortcut what he went through. And I thank him for that, because it's been a great, tremendous help.
Kevin, how neat was it to start your career at the same time as your brother?
I tell you, it's pretty neat, because I can watch him progress, as we move up each week. And it's weird. I look back, I look at tapes, I'm doing the same thing. It's we're pretty much moving at the same pace. We started off as rookies in the late model division, and sure, we wrecked some, and everybody does it. And the following year, it was like, man, we just started winning races, and we both did it at the same time. I think I won my first race, and then next week he won his. And I tell you, it's real neat to watch. You don't really notice yourself progressing as much as you do somebody else. So I can look at him and really see the progressions he's making. But then when I look back, I'm doing the same thing.
What makes you guys unique as brothers in this sport?
I really have to say it's the way we race and our personalities. We're totally different people. I'm a lot more aggressive driver, and I'm always on the go. And Wayne, he's a little more laid back, and it really shows on the racetrack. Our personalities in the pits, they reflect the same way on the racetrack. And also they were racing as a team. We're both brothers driving as a team. The Sadler brothers, they'll be doing that next year. And it's unusual to see 2 brothers in one team. Most of the time, one brother's doing his own thing, the other's doing the other. It's hard to get along with sometimes, but then again, it's easy to get along with because you're family. But in all, it works out pretty decent. It has for us so far. So, I think this brother team's going to work out.
Well, thanks, Tyler, and good luck to you, Kevin and Wayne. The Steel Chariots movie coming up next Tuesday night on the Fox Network. Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, Benny Parsons, and yours truly all play ourselves in the movie. That's not the main reason you need to look for it, but it should be an interesting movie on racing. That's next Tuesday night. Coming up on this show, right after we take a break, we'll have the mailbox and also a story on Ricky Craven helping out a fella from his home state of Maine. The Inside NASCAR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Lite. Our question today is from Jeffrey McNall from Mayfield Village, Ohio. From the clips I have seen, cars being tested are not fully painted. The cars look like they have a primer coat of paint. If so, is the surface rough? And if the surface is rough, does it affect the airflow of the car?
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for writing in. My name's Carl Behan. I'm a fabricator for McDonald's Ford Thunderbird, driven by Bill Elliott. The reason why we paint the car in primer is to change panels at the racetrack, the test pieces. Most of the time, the primer is smooth. You know, especially if you're testing it like Daytona or something, you want it as slick as possible, as close as possible. But it's just to make it a little easier when you go back to repaint the car.
If you have a question for the Inside NASCAR mailbox, write to us at Inside NASCAR, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Lite jacket, plus a cap and shirt from Chase Authentics, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR. Enter to win the Chase Authentics Fan Fantasy Sweepstakes. Win a trip for two to one of NASCAR's biggest races of 1998. Entry forms and complete rules in the men's department of participating Sears stores.
The annual open house at Dale Earnhardt Chevrolet in Newton, North Carolina is coming up on Monday, September 29th. Dale himself will be there along with his son Dale Jr., Ron Hornaday Jr., and Steve Park will all be there to sign autographs. We'll be back with a story on Ricky Craven helping out a fellow from his home state of Maine right after this.
It's fun, though, to watch somebody come down and experience this, because the perspective from the couch to what he just did is a great lesson, you know, and I love to hear the comments.
There are a lot of short track drivers around the country that would like to get experience on a super speedway. And one way they can do that is go through one of the driving schools. And one young man from the Northeast recently went through the Richard Petty driving experience, and he got a pleasant surprise while he was there. Ricky Craven stopped by.
Ricky Craven is just one of numerous stock car drivers who have made the move from New England down south to compete among NASCAR's top division. Along with Craven, Jeff Fuller, Joe Bessie, and Randy LaJoie, among many others, have made the move in the last few years, seeking the sport's best competition.
The great thing about NASCAR is there's so many levels of racing that it may start in the NASCAR Winston Racing Series, and then from there it goes to the Busch Grand National North or the Modified Series, and on to Busch Grand National and Winston Cup. And so there's so many options, and I think there's thousand drivers watching today saying, well, I'm going to take that trip to the driving school and experience that and help make up my mind, but there's definitely opportunity.
Like Craven, one driver looking for an opportunity is fellow Maine native Jesse Bunnell. He came to the Charlotte Motor Speedway recently to attend the Richard Petty driving experience. He's only 18 years old, and his previous racing experience consisted of driving flat, short tracks around New England, where he already has won Rookie of the Year honors in his Street Stock Series. So Bunnell's dreams of heading south one day like Ricky Craven starts at CMS, his first super speedway and his first experience with banking turns.
You got to drive the car different on a super speedway than you do on a short track. It's a totally different ballgame. So hopefully he'll get a better understanding of what it's all about.
Bunnell gets a step-by-step tour of the speedway thanks to driving instructor Kevin Ray. It's a chance for Bunnell to see the line or place on the track his car needs to be in order to make the fastest laps.
Once we get in the center of the turn, we'll be picking the throttle up.
Soon, Bunnell is strapped into a stock car, the same size and weight as a typical Winston Cup car. Once on the track, Bunnell does 20 hot laps, shadowing the instructor. And if there are any questions about Bunnell's desire to follow in the footsteps of Ricky Craven, you can forget about it.
You're coming in too quick.
Right, and it's gonna drift.
It's gonna drift up. That's
Okay.
exactly what was happening.
Okay.
You don't need me. You analyze yourself. That's perfect. You went right in, and if you come in too quick, it'll come out.
Jesse. Ricky Craven.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Jesse.
All right, what do we got to do to fix this thing?
More practice, I guess.
What was your first impression?
Fast.
Yeah.
A lot different than a street stock, boy.
You stay high as long as you can, because
Yep.
if you turn in too early, you get to the middle of the corner and you're all messed up.
Yep.
So you stay out wide and you stay wide open and roll out of the gas easy.
Yep.
Nice and easy, and then roll back in it easy. And your speeds will pick up. But it's a hard thing to do, especially if you've never done it.
Yeah.
But it's a great experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's the only way to describe it.
Later, we had a chance to sit down with Craven and Bunnell to talk about making that transition from racing in New England to racing down in Dixie.
When you came down, was there a bit of, aside from the track, a culture shock factor to come down from where you're saying NASCAR and Stott and to come down here? And is there an adjustment that Jesse may have to make if he makes it to the Busch Series?
He's going to have to trade the lobster for some barbecue. Yeah. And he'd just change, you know, maybe get an interpreter for a month or two, translate the language. But honestly, it's just great. I love it here. You know, I have a home here and intend to live here the rest of my life, but also have a home in the mountains of Maine. So I think I got the best of both worlds. And you know, again, it's nice to hear the story. Jesse says his best friend and the guy he looked up to the most was his dad. And, you know, you only have to look to Richard and Kyle Petty to see an example of that in Winston Cup, and I think that bodes for all of auto racing. You know, it's a family sport.
Jesse, you've run 20 hot laps here. You've gotten some good advice from Ricky. I'm sure he could give you a lot more. Where do you want to go from here in the short term and long term?
Back out on the track. No, I'm just looking to. I'm gonna try to, you know, move up to like a late model class and run that, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully just keep climbing up the ladder like Ricky did and all the other big guys. You know, it's the only thing to do. You can't go and jump in something over your head. You just end up, you know, making people mad and they lose respect for you, and you just blow a lot of money. So we'll see what happens next year.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Ricky.
Let's take a look back to 1983 when Bobby Allison was the Dover Dominator. In stop number 1 against the Monster Mile, Bobby started the Mason-Dixon 500 from the 10th position, while Darrell Waltrip, Allison's biggest rival for the '83 championship, started the day 4th. Joe Ruttman had his first career pole and led the first 49 laps. Then Jeff Bodine, Jocko Giacomo, and Ronnie Thomas tangled down in turn 3. Then it was J.D. McDuffie out of control. Kyle Petty and Kel Yarber couldn't avoid contact. The monster was up to its old tricks. In the end, the battle was between Allison and Waltrip when it started to rain on lap 496. 4 laps later, in a total downpour, Allison took his second victory of the 1983 season. Stop number 2 at Dover on September 18, 1983. Terry Labonte in the Budweiser number 44 was on the pole. Ricky Rudd in the Richard Childress Piedmont Airlines number 3 was alongside. Darrell Waltrip dropped off the lead pace early on with a flat tire. Dale Earnhardt was having a great day in the Budmore Wrangler Ford. He led the majority of the first 90 laps when an overheating problem took him out of contention. Labonte was back on the point until Tim Richmond in the old Milwaukee number 27 blew by for the position. Bill Elliott was also strong, but an ignition problem and then a spin on lap 380 dropped him to 8th. The next 2 victims of the monster were Ron Bouchard and Harry Gant on the front stretch. Jeff Bodine seemed to be on the way to his first career win, but Bobby Allison was too strong and took his second straight win at Dover. A few months later, he would be crowned the 1983 NASCAR Winston Cup champion. Bobby Allison, the 1983 Dover Dominator, and the tamer of the Monster Mile.
Well, of course, the NASCAR Winston Cup drivers and teams are at the Dover Downs International Speedway in Dover, Delaware for the MBNA 400 this weekend. Next week, they go to Martinsville, Virginia, the last short track race of the 1997 season. Well, we'll be here too. Let's take a look at what we have for you here on Inside NASCAR on TNN.
After what proved to be a disappointing venture in Winston Cup, Mike Wallace has found new life in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Driving for team owner Ken Schrader has refired Mike's competitive flame, and his racing stats show it. Plus, we'll check in with Busch Series regular Kevin LePage. After picking up his first series win last year, Kevin's 1997 campaign hasn't gone quite as well as he'd hoped. But a new sponsor on the horizon and some old-fashioned hard charging has Kevin excited about the future. Those stories and more are in the lineup next week on Inside NASCAR.
The trophy case here at Joe Gibbs Racing continues to fill up as they continue to win more races. And when a driver wins the race, normally in victory lane, is Miss Winston. And the current Miss Winston is Renee Perks, and she is the subject of this week's Inside NASCAR Profile.
You may not know her name, but chances are you've seen her smiling face many a time. Renee Perks is one of the two ladies who carry the title Miss Winston, a sort of goodwill ambassador for the Winston Cup Series. She represents the series sponsor at functions on race weekends and can always be seen both pre- and post-race.
My favorite part is victory lane, when the winning driver comes through and I'm responsible for handing him the check and the trophy and getting my pictures taken.
For years, Miss Winston has been chosen by R.J. Reynolds after an interview process set up through a modeling agency. In fact, the owner of that agency, Marilyn Green, was the very first Miss Winston 25 years ago. Since then, the position has evolved into a full-time job, but Renee says she doesn't mind the extra work because she's come to love the sport she used to know very little about.
I had attended a couple races in Darlington, as a matter of fact, being from South Carolina. I came to some of the races, but I wasn't as into it as I am now because I've gotten to know the drivers and their families and the crew, and that just makes NASCAR just so much more meaningful to me. I mean, it's one big family is what it is. When I walk into the garage, everyone here is very genuine people, and they are will do anything in the world for me as well as each other. And it's one big family, and it's very meaningful when I watch each driver go around the track. If one of them crashes, I'm like, gosh, because I know them and I personally, so I've gotten a lot closer with racing. I'm a big fan now, big race fan.
So much so that Renee could be around for a while. There are no time limits on how long Miss Winston can serve, and the current one says she has no plans to leave.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this show. We hope you enjoyed it. Our thanks to all the folks here at Joe Gibbs Racing for allowing us to show you around their fine facility. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.